First contact. The diplomatic vessel Unity slipped silently through the crimson atmosphere of Kelvera, its hull glinting under the harsh light of twin suns. Inside, Noah Blackwell tugged at the collar of his formal diplomatic uniform and tried to steady his breathing. 6 years as Earth's premier diplomat to alien species, and he still got the jitters before first contact. Final approach to Kelveran's central spire, Ambassador, Captain Torres announced over the comm. Atmospheric conditions normal. Local gravity at 1.2 Earth standard. Acknowledged, No replied, checking his appearance one final time in the reflective panel. At 38, his dark hair had started graying at the temples, giving him what his mother called a distinguished look. He hoped the Kelverans would agree, assuming they even had a concept of distinguished. The briefing materials on the Kelverans were concerning, to say the least. A warrior culture with a rigid honor code, their society operated on strict hierarchies established through ritual combat. They were humanoid but distinctly alien, scaled skin in shades of bronze and copper, 4 arms instead of 2, and eyes that changed color with emotion. They were also Earth's best hope for an alliance against the expanding Vorax Empire. Ambassador, Torres's voice crackled again. Kelveran Control is directing us to land at their ceremonial grounds. Apparently, we're arriving during some important ritual. They're insisting. Noah frowned. The diplomatic plan had been meticulously arranged for months. That wasn't the protocol we established. They say the High Commander has ordered it. Something about witnessing the rite of ascension being an honor they wish to bestow upon you. Wonderful, Noah muttered. Nothing says successful diplomacy like altering plans at the last minute. Still, flexibility was key in interspecies relations. Comply with their request, Captain. Let's not start this relationship by refusing their hospitality. The Unity banked smoothly, changing course toward a massive circular arena visible even from altitude. As they descended, Noah could make out thousands of Kelverans gathered in tiered seating around a central combat ring. 2 figures circled each other in the middle, glinting weapons in each of their 4 hands. This is going to be interesting, Noah whispered to himself. Commander Cyrex of the Kelveran Elite Guard slammed her lower right blade into her opponent's shield, feeling the satisfying crack of the barrier beginning to split. Ceremonial combat was meant to be non-lethal, but accidents happened, especially when one was fighting for the position of war diplomat to the humans. Yield, Carex, she hissed, her scales shifting from bronze to a deep copper as adrenaline flooded her system. You fought well, but we both know how this ends. Carex, her clutch brother and lifelong rival, bared his teeth in defiance. The humans will need strength at the negotiating table. Your tactics are too traditional. Cyrex laughed, a sound like stones grinding together. Traditional. I've won 73 ritual combats. Tradition serves me well. She spun, using her momentum to strike with all 4 blades simultaneously. Carex blocked 3, but the 4th sliced across his lower arm, drawing dark blue blood. The crowd roared its approval. First blood had been drawn. High Commander Zyrex raised his ceremonial staff, the signal that would normally end the combat, when a disturbance rippled through the arena. All eyes turned skyward as the human vessel descended toward the ceremonial landing platform, directly adjacent to the sacred combat ring. Cyrex froze mid-strike. They dare interrupt the rite of ascension. Carex took advantage of her distraction, sweeping her legs and sending her crashing to the ground. Her weapons clattered away. Perhaps, Carex said, placing the tip of his blade against her throat, it is time for new traditions. The crowd went silent. Cyrex had not lost a ceremonial combat in 15 cycles. To lose now, with the humans watching. High Commander Zyrex descended from his observation platform, his ancient face unreadable. The combat is not concluded, he announced, his voice carrying across the now silent arena. The arrival of the Earth Ambassador is fortuitous. Let them witness the completion of our sacred rite. Cyrex pushed herself to her feet, retrieving her weapons. Her scales had darkened to almost black, the color of humiliation and rage. I will not fail before the humans. The Unity settled onto the landing platform with barely a sound. The exit ramp extended, and a single figure emerged, smaller than a Kelveran, with only 2 arms and skin that seemed soft and vulnerable. Noah Blackwell stepped onto alien soil, immediately aware that something was very wrong. The ceremonial combat he'd observed from above had stopped, and thousands of alien eyes were fixed upon him. His translator implant hummed to life. As the High Commander approached, Ambassador Blackwell of Earth, the ancient Kelveran said, "You honor us with your presence on this sacred day. You arrive at the culmination of our rite of ascension, where we determine who shall serve as war diplomat to your people." Noah bowed precisely the way the briefings had instructed, neither too deep nor too shallow. "The honor is mine, High Commander. Earth looks forward to establishing mutual understanding and alliance with the proud Kelveran people." A murmur ran through the crowd at Noah's flawless pronunciation of their formal greeting. "The combat before you will determine which of our warriors will represent our interests to your world," the High Commander continued. "Commander Cyrex, our most decorated warrior, faces Sub-Commander Carex." Noah glanced at the 2 combatants. The larger one, Cyrex, he assumed, was staring at him with eyes that had shifted to a deep violet. According to his briefing, that indicated either intense curiosity or murderous intent. Given the context, Noah wasn't optimistic about which it might be. "Please," the High Commander gestured to an ornate seat near the combat ring. "Observe our sacred tradition." Noah took his place, acutely aware that this was not how first contact was supposed to proceed. The 2 Kelverans resumed their positions in the ring, their 4 arms brandishing weapons that seemed designed for maximum intimidation. "Begin," the High Commander commanded. What followed was unlike anything Noah had ever witnessed. The 2 Kelverans moved with impossible speed and precision, their 4 arms working independently yet in perfect coordination. Blades clashed against shields, sparks flying with each impact. Cyrex moved like liquid lightning, each strike flowing into the next. But Carex was cunning, using his opponent's momentum against her. Then disaster struck. Noah, leaning forward to better observe a particularly complex maneuver, accidentally knocked over a ceremonial vessel positioned beside his seat. The contents, a luminescent blue liquid, spilled across the sacred boundary of the combat ring. The arena went deathly silent. Cyrex stopped mid-attack, all 4 of her eyes widening as they shifted to a bright gold. Shock. Carex stepped back, lowering his weapons. The High Commander raised his staff, his voice thundering across the arena. "The sacred water has been spilled by the hand of an outsider during ritual combat. By ancient law, this is a challenge direct." Noah rose quickly to his feet. "High Commander, I assure you this was an accident." "There are no accidents in the sacred arena," the aged Kelveran intoned. "You have issued challenge direct to Commander Cyrex. She must respond or forfeit her honor." Cyrex stepped forward, her scales shifting to a deep crimson as she addressed Noah directly. "Human, do you know what you have done?" Noah's translator struggled with the complex Kelveran emotions layered in her question. "I apologize for any offense, Commander. On Earth, we would simply clean up the spill and continue." "On Earth, perhaps," Cyrex replied, her voice cold as space. "On Kelvera, you have challenged me before my people. There is only one response." She held out one of her blades, offering the hilt to Noah. "You will face me in the simplified ritual of the challenge direct. 1 throw each with the ceremonial spear. Closest to the opponent's heart is victor." Noah looked from the weapon to the High Commander, desperately searching for diplomatic options. The old Kelveran's expression offered no escape. "If I refuse, then our alliance dies before it begins," the High Commander said simply. "And you would not leave Kelvera alive." Noah slowly took the offered weapon, its weight unfamiliar in his hand. "I accept the challenge, though I do so under protest." Cyrex's eyes narrowed. shifting to deep green. Contempt. Your protest is noted. Human. It will change nothing. The arena was reconfigured. Noah stood at one end, Cyrex at the other. Between them, a distance of 30 meters. In Noah's hands, a ceremonial spear etched with symbols he couldn't read. The weapon felt wrong, balanced for a being with different proportions and strength. The rule is simple, explained a Kelvaran official. You will throw your spear at your opponent. They will remain stationary. Then they will throw theirs at you. Closest to the heart determines the victor. And if I win? Noah asked. Cyrex made a harsh sound that the translator didn't catch. That will not happen. The High Commander raised his staff once more. Begin. Noah hefted the spear, conscious of thousands of alien eyes upon him. His diplomatic career, possibly Earth's alliance, depended on what happened next. He wasn't a warrior, had never thrown a spear in combat, but he had played javelin in college track and field. Not the same, but close enough. He took a deep breath, sighted along the shaft, and threw. The spear arced through the air, its trajectory true. It landed just 3 feet to Cyrex's right. Not a hit, but closer than many in the crowd had expected from a soft, 2-armed human. A murmur of surprise rippled through the arena. Cyrex picked up her own spear, her eyes now blazing orange. Determination mixed with anger. Without ceremony, she launched it directly at Noah's chest. Time seemed to slow. The spear cut through the air with deadly precision, its course unerring. Noah knew he should stand still. That was the rule. But 20 years of baseball reflexes took over. His hand shot out. The impossible happened. Noah Blackwell, Ambassador of Earth, caught the ceremonial spear one-handed, its point stopping mere inches from his heart. The arena exploded into chaos. Kelvarans leaped to their feet, voices raised in what could have been outrage or awe. Noah's translator couldn't process the overlapping sounds. The High Commander slammed his staff down 3 times, restoring order. Silence, he commanded. When quiet returned, he turned to Noah, his ancient eyes wide. Ambassador, do you understand what you have done? Noah lowered the spear, his heart pounding. I acted on instinct. On Earth, we might call it self-preservation. You have caught the ceremonial spear of a Kelvaran warrior during Challenge Direct. The High Commander said, his voice reverent. This has happened only twice in our recorded history, by our most ancient and sacred law. You and Commander Cyrex are now bound by the cord of fate. Cyrex stormed forward, her scales nearly black with rage. Impossible. He is not Kelvaran. The law cannot apply. The law makes no distinction, the High Commander replied firmly. The spear was thrown. The spear was caught. The bond is formed. He turned to address the stunned arena. Behold, the human ambassador Noah Blackwell and Commander Cyrex are now bound by honor until death or glory separates them. Noah looked from the High Commander to the furious Kelvaran warrior. I'm sorry, but my translator must be malfunctioning. What exactly does bound by honor mean? The High Commander placed a gnarled hand on Noah's shoulder. It means, Ambassador, that by our most sacred law, you and Commander Cyrex are now one warrior entity. Where one goes, the other must follow. What one promises, the other must uphold. Her enemies are your enemies. Your allies are her allies. His ancient face broke into what might have been a smile. And she is now, unquestionably, our war diplomat to Earth. Cyrex's eyes flashed multiple colors in rapid succession before settling on a deep purple. She stepped close to Noah, her voice dropping to a whisper that only he could hear. Human, you have no idea what you've done. But know this, I am bound to you by law, not by choice, and I will make every moment of this bond a test of your species' worthiness. Noah met her gaze steadily. Then we understand each other perfectly, Commander, because I intend to make this bond the foundation of the strongest alliance the galaxy has ever seen, whether you like it or not. Around them, the Kelveren arena erupted in the rhythmic pounding that signified the recognition of a momentous event. The first human-Kelveren bond had been formed, and the galaxy would never be the same. Bound by honor, Noah's diplomatic quarters in the Kelveren Central Spire were spacious by human standards, but felt distinctly alien. The lighting pulsed with a subtle rhythm that matched the planet's magnetic field, and the air carried traces of minerals that made his skin tingle. He stood at the viewport, watching the twin suns begin their descent behind Kelvera's jagged mountain ranges. "Ambassador, your presence is requested in the council chamber immediately," announced the Kelveran attendant from the doorway. The translator rendered the tone as respectful but urgent. Noah sighed. "Thank you. Please inform them I'll be there shortly." It had been 3 days since the incident in the arena, 3 days of endless ceremonial rituals, formal presentations, and thinly veiled hostility from Commander Cyrex. The Kelveran warrior had fulfilled her legal obligations with rigid precision, but made no attempt to hide her resentment. As Noah made his way through the Central Spire's winding corridors, he spotted Captain Torres waiting at an intersection. "You look terrible," Torres said bluntly. "Thank you for that assessment, Captain." Noah rubbed his temples. "How are things on the Unity?" "The crew is adapting to Kelveran hospitality. Engineering is fascinated by their propulsion systems." Torres lowered her voice. "But security is concerned. There's been unusual activity around our ship. Scans, surveillance. Nothing overtly hostile, but prudent precautions or something more." Noah mused. "Hard to tell with these people. They're warriors, but they're also meticulous. Could just be their version of standard protocol." Torres hesitated. "Speaking of warriors, how's your situation?" Noah grimaced. "Commander Cyrex is a model of Kelveran efficiency. She's also made it abundantly clear that she considers our bond a cosmic joke at her expense." "Well, you did catch her spear," Torres reminded him. "According to the cultural briefing we received after the fact, that's like catching lightning in a bottle while blindfolded." "Lucky me," Noah muttered. They arrived at the massive doors to the council chamber. 4 Kelveran guards stood at attention, their ceremonial armor gleaming under the bioluminescent lights. With a series of precisely coordinated movements, they opened the doors to reveal the heart of Kelveran governance. The chamber was circular, rising several stories upward to a dome that displayed a real-time map of the surrounding star systems. In the center, a raised platform held the 7 seats of the High Command. Around this, tiered seating accommodated representatives from various Kelveran domains. Noah immediately spotted Cyrex standing rigidly at the foot of the platform, her scales a muted bronze that indicated formal discipline. High Commander Cyrex gestured for Noah to approach. "Ambassador Blackwell, join us. The matter at hand concerns both our worlds." Noah stepped forward, taking his place beside Cyrex. She didn't acknowledge him beyond a slight stiffening of her posture. "The Council has reviewed your proposal for the Earth-Kelvera Defense Pact," Cyrex announced. "While the terms are surprisingly acceptable, there remains the matter of implementation." An older Kelveran with battle-scarred scales stood from the second tier. "The human proposes joint military exercises in the Sullivan system. This would place Earth vessels dangerously close to our homeworld defense grid. A necessary risk if our forces are to learn to work together," Noah countered. "The Vorax Empire won't wait while we establish protocols at arm's length. And why should we trust humans with such proximity?" The scared Kelveran demanded. "Your species is barely a century into space travel. Ours has dominated this sector for millennia." Noah felt Cyrex shift beside him. To his surprise, she spoke up. "Counselor Vren, I have been bond-linked to the human ambassador for 3 days." Her voice carried no emotion the translator could detect. "In that time, I have observed nothing to suggest duplicity or hidden agenda. They fear the Vorax as we do. Their tactics may be unorthodox, but they are not without merit." Silence fell across the chamber. For Cyrex to speak in Noah's defense, however clinically, was unexpected. High Commander Zyrex's eyes shifted to a pale blue, thoughtful consideration. The bond between Commander Cyrex and Ambassador Blackwell provides a unique opportunity. Perhaps a demonstration of this unified purpose would address the Council's concerns. What kind of demonstration? Noah asked cautiously. The rite of shared burden, Cyrex replied. A sacred ritual where bonded warriors prove their connection through trials of body and mind. It has not been performed in 7 generations, as no Kelveran has caught another's spear in that time. Cyrex's scales darkened visibly. High Commander, the human is not trained in our ways. The rite would likely kill him. If that is his fate, then the bond was false, declared Councillor Vren, satisfaction evident in his tone. Noah stepped forward, unwilling to undertake this rite, provided the Council agrees to proceed with the Defense Pact upon its successful completion. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Cyrex turned to Noah, her eyes flashing amber. Warning. You don't understand what you're agreeing to, she hissed. Then explain it to me, Noah replied quietly. Because from where I stand, this might be our only path forward. High Commander Cyrex raised his staff. It is decided. The rite of shared burden will commence at first light tomorrow. Should Ambassador Blackwell and Commander Cyrex complete it successfully, the Earth-Kelvera Defense Pact will be ratified immediately. As the council session concluded, Cyrex grabbed Noah's arm with her lower right hand and steered him into a secluded alcove. Her scales had shifted to a dangerous crimson. You fool, she snarled, her translator barely keeping up with her rapid speech. You've sentenced yourself to death, and me to dishonored when you fail. Then help me succeed. Noah replied calmly. Isn't that what our bond requires? Mutual support. Cyrex's eyes narrowed. The rite tests physical strength, combat skills, mental resilience, and spiritual alignment. Even bonded Kelverans struggle to complete it. You are human, soft, weak. And yet I caught your spear, Noah reminded her. Perhaps there are different kinds of strength. For a moment, Cyrex seemed poised to strike him. Instead, her scales gradually shifted back to bronze. You caught my spear through luck or reflex, not skill. Does the law differentiate? Cyrex made a sound that might have been frustration. No. The law cares only for results, not methods. She stepped closer, studying him with all 4 eyes. You truly believe your species and mine can form an effective alliance? I do, Noah said without hesitation. The Vorax expand by exploiting divisions between worlds. Together, we present a unified front they've never encountered. And if I believe this alliance benefits Kelvera more than Earth. Noah smiled slightly. Then we share common ground, Commander, because I believe it benefits Earth more than Kelvera. For the first time, Cyrex's expression showed something other than contempt or rigid formality. Her upper eyes blinked slowly, a gesture Noah's cultural briefing associated with reluctant reassessment. Meet me in the Temple of Warriors at sunset, she said finally. If you are to have any chance of surviving tomorrow, you will need preparation. The Temple of Warriors was ancient, its walls carved from a single massive crystal that hummed with barely audible resonance. Noah found Cyrex kneeling in the central chamber, surrounded by ceremonial weapons and vessels of aromatic oils. Remove your human garments, she instructed without preamble. They restrict movement and will interfere with the ritual preparations. Noah hesitated only briefly before complying, stripping down to his undergarments. The temple air was warm against his skin. Cyrex circled him slowly, all 4 eyes evaluating. Your muscle density is greater than I expected, she admitted, but still inadequate for Kelveran combat. Then we adapt, Noah replied. What exactly does this rite entail? Cyrex dipped her lower hands into one of the oil vessels. 4 trials. First, the trial of body, a combat challenge against ceremonial guardians. Second, the trial of mind, a navigation of psychotropic visions designed to break your will. Third, the trial of spirit, an endurance test of pain and deprivation. Fourth, the trial of unity, where both bonded warriors must act as one being to overcome a final challenge. She began applying the oil to Noah's skin, her touch clinical and precise. This sacred preparation will heighten your senses and provide some protection against the temple's energies. It cannot make you Kelverin, but it may prevent immediate failure. Your confidence is overwhelming, Noah remarked dryly. I speak truth, not comfort, Cyrex replied. The rite was designed to test the most elite of Kelveran warriors. No outsider has ever attempted it. There's a first time for everything. Cyrex's scales shifted slightly toward a lighter copper shade. Your species' capacity for irrational optimism is remarkable. As she worked the oil into his skin, Noah noticed intricate scars across her arms, geometrical patterns too precise to be combat injuries. Those markings, he asked, what do they signify? Cyrex paused briefly. Each pattern commemorates a significant victory or life transition. This spiral marks my first command. These parallel lines record the defeat of the Mevian incursion. This starburst represents my 73rd ritual combat victory. And this. Noah pointed to a complex pattern across her upper right shoulder. That was to have been completed tomorrow, she said quietly. The mark of a war diplomat. I'm sorry for disrupting your path, Noah said sincerely. Cyrex's eyes flickered with an unreadable emotion. Our paths are now one, Ambassador. Whether we walk it to glory or doom remains to be seen. She resumed her ministrations, her touch becoming marginally less clinical. The council member who questioned you, Councillor Vren, has long opposed alliance with Earth. He sees your species as unpredictable, dangerous. Are we? Yes, Cyrex answered without hesitation. But the Vorax are worse. She completed the oil application and stepped back. There is something else you should know. The rite of shared burden requires complete honesty between bonded warriors. During the trial of mind, our thoughts will be accessible to each other. Noah absorbed this information. All thoughts, all that are significant, fears, ambitions, secrets. Her scales darkened slightly. It is intimate in a way Kelverins rarely experience outside of bonding. I understand, Noah said, though he wasn't entirely sure he did. Is there anything else I should prepare for? Cyrex retrieved a small ceremonial blade. Yes, the bond mark. She held up the knife, a physical representation of our connection. It will be placed over your heart, and mine. Noah nodded slowly. On Earth, we have a saying, in for a penny, in for a pound. If we're doing this, let's do it properly. For the first time, Cyrex's mouth curved in what might have been the Kelveran equivalent of a smile. Your language has wisdom, Ambassador. Now be still. This will hurt. The blade was sharper than seemed possible, slicing into the skin over Noah's heart with minimal pain. Cyrex worked quickly, carving a pattern that matched the one she simultaneously cut into her own chest with her lower left hand. When she finished, she pressed a paste of luminescent minerals into both wounds. Now we are truly bonded in the eyes of the temple, she said, her voice taking on a formal quality. Your blood is my blood. Your path is my path. Your victory is my victory. Your defeat is my defeat. Noah repeated the words as the translator provided them. The wounds on their chests began to glow with a soft blue light. It's beautiful, Noah observed. It is binding, Cyrex corrected, though her tone had lost some of its edge. Rest now, Ambassador. Tomorrow will test us both beyond anything you have experienced. As Noah prepared to leave, Cyrex stopped him with a light touch on his arm. Noah Blackwell of Earth, she said, using his full name for the first time, I do not wish to see you die tomorrow. Noah met her gaze steadily. Then we're in agreement, Commander, because I don't wish to die. Cyrex, she said quietly, if we are to face the right together, you should use my name. Cyrex, Noah repeated, noticing how her eyes shifted to a softer hue at the sound of her name on his lips. I'll see you at first light. Dawn on Kelvera painted the sky in shades of deep purple and crimson. Noah stood at the entrance to the ancient trial grounds, a massive complex of stone and crystal built into the side of a dormant volcano. Beside him, Cyrex was resplendent in ceremonial combat gear, her scales polished to a high sheen, her forearms adorned with the markings of her rank and accomplishments. "Remember what I told you," she said quietly. "The first trial tests physical strength, but it also tests adaptability. The Guardians will expect Kelveran combat techniques. You must surprise them." Noah nodded, feeling the weight of the ceremonial armor Cyrex had insisted he wear. It had been modified to fit his human frame, but still felt awkward and heavy. High Commander Cyrex approached, accompanied by the full council and what appeared to be thousands of Kelveran spectators. This was, Noah realized, as much political theater as sacred ritual. "Ambassador Blackwell, Commander Cyrex," the High Commander intoned. "Today you face the right of shared burden, a test of your bond and your worthiness to forge an alliance between our worlds. Do you enter this right willingly and with full understanding of its consequences?" "We do," they answered in unison. The High Commander raised his ancient staff. "Then let the rite begin." The massive stone doors to the trial ground swung open, revealing a cavernous chamber lit by glowing crystals. In the center stood 4 imposing Kelveran warriors, each easily 8 feet tall and armored in what appeared to be living metal that shifted and flowed across their bodies. "The Guardians of the first trial," Cyrex whispered. "They cannot be killed, only overcome." Noah took a deep breath, feeling the bond mark on his chest pulse in rhythm with Cyrex. "Together, then." She glanced at him, her eyes briefly shifting to a color Noah hadn't seen before, determination mixed with something that might have been hope. "Together, Ambassador." They stepped forward into the chamber, the stone doors closing behind them with finality. As they approached the center, the 4 Guardians activated, their armor pulsing with ancient power. "Bonded warriors," spoke the largest Guardian, its voice resonating like struck crystal. "Prove your worthiness through combat, or perish in the attempt." All 4 Guardians attacked simultaneously. Cyrex moved with practiced precision, her forearms wielding ceremonial blades in a blur of motion. She engaged 2 Guardians at once, her combat style a mesmerizing display of Kelveran martial tradition. Noah, however, was immediately on the defensive. The Guardian attacking him moved with impossible speed, its 4 arms striking from multiple angles simultaneously. His human reflexes, impressive on Earth, were barely adequate here. "Use your difference," Cyrex called out as she parried a devastating blow. "They expect Kelveran patterns." Noah dodged another attack, his mind racing. Kelveran combat relied on the coordination of 4 arms in complex patterns. Human combat. He had an idea. Instead of attempting to match the Guardian's speed or strength, Noah suddenly dropped low and swept his leg in a wide arc, a basic human martial arts technique completely foreign to Kelveran combat. The Guardian, unprepared for an attack at ground level, staggered momentarily. Noah pressed his advantage, incorporating Earth martial arts that utilize momentum and leverage rather than brute strength. Boxing jabs, wrestling takedowns, judo throws. Each movement confused the Guardian, whose combat programming expected the ritualized patterns of Kelveran fighting. Across the chamber, Cyrex had maneuvered her 2 opponents into position. "Noah," she called, "to me." Understanding flashed between them through their bond. Noah disengaged from his Guardian and sprinted toward Cyrex, who had positioned herself between her opponents. As Noah approached, she dropped to one knee, forming her 4 arms into a launch platform. Without breaking stride, Noah stepped onto her braced arms. With strength that defied her size, Cyrex catapulted Noah high into the air above the Guardians. As he descended, Noah delivered a devastating kick to the lead Guardian's head, a human attack from an impossible angle. The Guardian crashed to the ground, its armor temporarily disrupted. The others hesitated, their programming encountering an unexpected scenario. Kelveran and human combat styles merged into something entirely new. In that moment of confusion, Noah and Cyrex moved as one. Back to back, they engaged the remaining Guardians. Noah created openings with unpredictable human movements. Cyrex exploited them with precise Kelveran strikes. Within minutes, all 4 Guardians lay immobilized. The chamber resonated with a deep harmonic tone. "The trial of body is complete," announced an unseen voice. "Proceed to the trial of mind." Cyrex looked at Noah with newfound respect, her scales shifting to a bright copper that indicated surprise and appreciation. "Your combat style is unorthodox, but effective." Noah smiled, catching his breath. "I believe that's the first compliment you've given me, Cyrex." "Do not become accustomed to it," she replied, but the harsh edge that had characterized her previous interactions was notably absent. "The next trial will be more intimate. Are you prepared?" Noah felt the bond mark pulse warmly against his chest. "As ready as I'll ever be." Together, they moved deeper into the trial grounds, the air growing thick with incense and charged with unseen energies. Ahead lay the Chamber of Visions, where their minds would be laid bare to each other, and where the true test of their bond would begin. The soft glow of their bond marks illuminated the passage, 2 hearts beating in rhythm, as Human and Kelveran stepped forward, as one toward their shared fate.